Hey, hi everyone. This is NT593 Business and Technology. Today is a special program. We're going to combine a couple topics. We're going to talk about a little bit of business. We're going to talk about technology, but we're also going to talk about fitness. I'm not an expert. I kind of do some exercise, but today I invited my good friend Hermann so we can show us and we can discuss what you, myself, male or female over 40 should be doing to be good. Hermann, how you doing, man? Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Doing great. Happy to be here. Yep.
And you're a professional. I'm a novice on this. And the idea here, as we're discussing, is there are a lot of people. I mean, corporate executives, we don't have time. That's our perfect excuse. I gotta jump into a board meeting. I gotta take a plane. I got customers. And that's the reason why I don't do exercise. In the previews on the promos videos, you mentioned 10 minutes. I'm doing 30. So tell us, why 10 minutes is good enough for a corporate executive today?
10 minutes is often what I start my clients on because it's a process called escalating density training. Okay, this is something created by a man named Charles Staley back in the 80s. And the idea of this workout is that it helps you shred the fat off of your body. And what's happening here is you're mixing a cardio workout with resistance exercise. And so the way it's done is we're going to be doing a push and then a pull exercise. And the beauty of this is that, let's say a push, we're doing push-ups, right? We're going to do maybe diamond push-ups that are a little bit harder. We'll do like 5 diamond push-ups. And then maybe right after that, we'll grab a band. And then with the band, we're going to be doing, let me put the camera a little bit lower here. With the band, we're going to be going up bicep curls like this. So what's happening there is that when we do the push, all the blood is in our triceps and our chest muscle. Those are the push muscles, right? But then when we use the band to do a pull, all the blood has to transfer from the triceps, the back of the arm, to the front, the biceps. That now decreases lactic acid buildup. That's the burning sensation that you get when you work out too much. And so because the blood is constantly transferred, we're doing 5 push-ups, 5 curls with the band or with weights. The blood then from the chest, when you do the push-up, the blood has to transfer to the back when you're doing the pull exercise. So it decreases lactic acid buildup, which means that we're able to do more work. And in that 10-minute window, we're going back and forth, not stopping at all, continuously. So it's very intense. And the ideal is that we get to a point where then maybe you can't do 5 push-ups. And maybe you can only do 4. Let's say you've been going for 8 minutes, the last 2 minutes, you're only getting 4 push-ups in, and maybe 3. And then with the biceps curl, you're doing the curl with the band or with weights, and you were getting 5 up to your chest like this, but now they're going lower. You're not really able to get all the way up to your chest. And so what happens there is that you're now very tired. You're going through a cardiorespiratory workout, which is ideal, yet at the same time, you're really working out your muscles to muscle failure. So this is why a regular bodybuilder, they would do this type of exercise called escalating density training. They would do this 2 to 4 weeks before the day of competition. Because what a bodybuilder would normally do is they'll be eating more food, building up muscle. They might have a little bit of a gut, believe it or not. But then 1 month before, they switch their diet to be completely, basically the only protein and fat. They switch their diet. They're maybe eating a lot of carbohydrates. They switch their diet to being ketogenic or carnivore. And then they start doing escalating density training. It helps them shred so that the day of competition, The little bit of a belly that they had, it's completely gone, and they basically have a perfect six-pack. And because they've been combining push and pull, then they haven't lost any muscle mass at all, but they've shredded their fat. And so that's the idea. So I start my clients, I call it the 10-minute workout, but it's the escalating density training created by Charles Staley back in the 80s. And we do it for 10 minutes. Usually the first week we started at twice a week. We do one for the upper body, one for the lower body. And then we get up to 4 times a week that we're doing that. Only 10 minutes each session.
It sounds incredible. Myself, I've been doing, as you guys can see on the chart, I've been doing 30 minutes. I would love to do all of that, the benefits of it in 10 minutes. Because as you guys watching this show, we don't have time. So you mentioned that, how many times a week you got to do it?
Well, you start with 2 the first week. One for the upper body, one for the lower body, giving yourself a number of days to rest. Because again, you're going to muscle failure. In the lower body, it might be just as simple as you have maybe a little bit of weight, you're doing a reverse, you're doing 5 on the left leg, then 5 on the right, you're doing a reverse lunge. And there again, you're switching the blood being focused on one leg, then the other. And that switching of blood going back and forth, just like the push and pull with the upper body, it's what allows lactic acid not to build up. So you don't get a sore. So you end up doing more push-ups, more bicep curls, because the blood keeps switching. If you just kept doing push-ups, you would burn out. But because you're switching from push-ups to the biceps curl, the lactic acid doesn't build up and you get to keep going. And then sometimes from 10 minutes, we can bump it up to 12 minutes, then to 15 minutes. And the most important thing here is that we're keeping track. Let's say you did 50 push-ups and 45 bicep curls. So then the next time you do it, you want to beat that number. You want to beat the 50 push-ups and you want to beat the 45 curls. So you're competing with yourself every single time. And I always say probably the most important rule when working out is to keep track. You really want to keep track because you want to compete with yourself. And even just the simple act of competing is a very healthy thing, because it actually builds testosterone. This has been shown by Huberman, Andrew Huberman, who has his podcast, Huberman Labs, I believe it's called, where he talks about how when you compete and when you do things like CrossFit and maybe you're competing with others, that naturally builds testosterone. And I recommend after the age of 40, try not to compete so much with others. Try to just compete with yourself. Because, I know when I was in my 40s, I had a phase where I was doing CrossFit and I would try to compete with younger guys. Not a smart idea, because after it was like a cycle. I would do the CrossFit, I loved it, but after about 3 months, something would happen. I would hurt my knee, my ankle, my back, trying to compete with a new guy who came in, and because he was new, I knew that when they're younger, eventually they're going to catch up and surpass me because they're younger. But when they're new, I was determined to beat them. And often I would, because they're not in shape, because they're new. They were younger, but they're not in great shape yet. But that competing, good for testosterone, but not good for getting hurt. You get injured, and that's what would happen. Eventually, I stopped doing the CrossFit. But it's much better if you can look at numbers, see what you've done previously, and now you're competing with that. That's a much healthier way to be able to compete and still raise the natural testosterone that rises from competition. And you can do it in a safe way without getting hurt, but you have to keep track. Absolutely vital.
So let's start putting things together. I don't think any of the corporate who are listening to us are planning to go to the Olympics. If you guys can do so, and we'll be proud of you. But I think what we're proposing is 10 minutes, 3 times a week, consistency and discipline, and start bringing the discipline and the process and systems that we apply at corporate into how train and work with people like you to accomplish our goals on a weekly basis. It's correct?
Right. Yeah, and what normally happens, because most of my clients, most men over 40, especially busy executive, what's the issue? The issue is that it's in their core. This area here, they have, weight here. It's very different. Like, for example, it's all phases. What gets you from A to B is not the same thing that's going to get you from B to C. So, for example, like, I sometimes criticize things like getting 10,000 steps a day or lots of walking. But the truth is that if you have over 30 pounds to lose, doing something like just starting to walk can be a great thing. And keeping track of steps can be a great thing at that point where you're trying to, initially lose that first 20 pounds. Maybe you have 50 pounds you want to lose, but losing the first 20, doing something very simple like 10,000 steps a day is a great thing, without a doubt. However, the final 10 to 20 pounds that you want to lose in your core, that's where then the walking could become a detriment. And what helped you lose the first 20 pounds is not the same thing that's going to help you lose the final 20 pounds or final 10 pounds that you have around your gut. And that's like we were discussing earlier, that when you're doing a long endurance type of athletic activity, like running, jogging, walking, biking, swimming, your body wants to utilize the most efficient fuel. And the most efficient fuel that your body has to utilize is fat. And that's where maybe I'll share my screen and show that. I'll show this. I'll show the with the macronutrients what the human body uses for fuel. And so let's go here to this picture here, and I'll present this. And so, here we're talking about the three main macronutrients that the food that we eat. The blue, you can see the blue here. The blue represents the energy per gram. So carbohydrates. And by carbohydrates, I mean all carbohydrates. I'm talking fruit, vegetables, rice, of course, all the processed junk food as well. But all carbohydrates, they give us 4 calories of energy per gram. Protein also gives us 4 calories of energy per gram. But look at fat, it gives us 9. Now, 9 calories per gram. Now, we can view this one of two ways. You can view it as, if you're looking at the human body in terms of weight loss, if you wanted to lose weight and you're thinking, well, I want to avoid the fat because I'm getting 9 calories per gram. I would argue, no, you don't want to avoid the fat. You want the fat because that's giving you more energy. 9 calories per gram. So you can look at this either way. And there are some scientists and doctors who would argue that, no, we want to avoid the fat. We don't want 9 calories per gram. That's bad. And we have other doctors and scientists who would say, no, we want the 9 calories per gram because that's giving us more energy. That's a more efficient fuel system. So you can look at it either way, but I will tell you this. I eat a lot of fat. I'm 56 years old and I have a 6-pack. And it's because I eat a lot of fat, because my body runs on fat. When you run on fat, then you burn the fat off of your own body. See, that's the key. So you want to be burning fat. You want to get the 9 calories of energy. It's like comparing if you have a 4-cylinder car and an 8 or 9-cylinder car. If everything else is equal, which car is going to win the race? The one with more cylinders. Same concept here. Now look at the burn time. Look at the rose-colored here. Carbohydrates, when you eat carbohydrates, you burn through it in 1 hour. When you eat protein, it takes longer, 3 hours. When you eat fat, it takes even longer, 6 hours. So what does this mean? This means that if you want to do something like fasting, then it's way, way easier to fast if you ate a lot of proteins and fats as compared to carbohydrates. And I personally know this because I remember about 15 years ago, I had a gallbladder issues, severe stomach issues, and I went to a naturopath. And she told me to fast, but she told me to do it coming off of fruits and vegetables. And then when I got off of the fast, when I start eating again, to start eating fruits and vegetables. And I did that, and I tried to do a 7-day fast. I couldn't do it. I had to drink a lot of hemp milk. She said, when all else fails, drink hemp milk. I would see other people eating, and I'd want to like murder them. Like, it was really bad. It was very difficult for me to do. But I later realized, because I was coming off of fruits and vegetables, which is pure carbohydrates. Now, I recently, just a couple of years ago, I did fasting coming off of fat and mainly a carnivore diet, and it was way, way easier. But because of what this chart shows, when you eat proteins and fat, you can just go for longer periods without feeling hungry. And I also remember, Chinese food. I used to eat a lot of Chinese food. Chinese food has what? A lot of rice, a lot of vegetables, sweet and sour sauce, and maybe a little bit of protein, a little bit of chicken. And what I always noticed when I would eat Chinese food is I would be hungry like within an hour. I was hungry again. And that's because it was a lot of carbohydrates. I don't know, Edgar, have you ever noticed that when you eat Chinese food?
All the time, of course. I mean, you're right. And, for everything there's carbohydrates, I think that's a real problem. And whenever I want to compete, the only way can I sustain a little bit of itself if I go straight into the pasta, because it's not that refined. But yes, carbohydrate is the word when you want to train. And let's add some disclosure here. So again, we're not saying that we're going to go and compete at the Olympics. You corporate executives who are listening to us, is how to go about 10 minutes up to 30 minutes 3 times a week, and how eating and having the good mix of the nutrients, as Hermann is showing here to us, is important, so you guys can train, be healthy, and be ready for the next week at the fitness and back at the boardroom. So let's talk about that, because I think the other myth around is eat less quantity. Hermann explained to us, if we lower the amount of what the body needs on a daily basis, what happens?
Yeah, well, here again, I would argue that what we really want to track more than anything is protein, especially for men over 40. And there's a big reason for that. First of all, there is a very important concept called the thermogenic effect of food. Okay, so let's talk about that, because this is critical. So when you eat protein, let's say you eat 100 grams of protein, you are going to need about, and let's say with that 100 grams of protein, you have 1,000 calories. Let's keep it simple, 100 calories. Okay, when you eat protein, it's going to take between up to 20 to 30% of those calories are going to be consumed, are going to be used up just to digest the protein. Because digesting the protein is more energy intensive, right? So if we eat 100 grams of protein, that means that up to 30 calories of those 100 calories of protein, 30 calories are going to be used up just to digest the protein. But when you eat carbohydrates, it doesn't take up that much energy to digest, and so you only consume 10 calories. So right there, when you eat 100 calories of protein, you're really only consuming between 80 and 70. But when you eat 100 calories of carbohydrates, you're at least consuming 90 calories. You see what I mean? Because it takes a lot less energy to digest the carbohydrates than it does the protein. So right there, that's the thermogenic effect of food, which is why counting calories, it's kind of a waste of time. It sounds very scientific, but the reality is, especially for men over 40, it's not that vital, the calories. Way more important is how are you getting enough protein? And a lot of people will argue that the ideal amount of protein is your ideal body weight. So if you weigh like 173, more or less what I weigh, 175, I should be eating then about 175 grams of protein per day. And it should be your ideal body weight. So if you want to lose 50 pounds and let's say you weigh 225, then you want to at least consume your ideal body weight, which let's say would be, if you want to lose 50 pounds, it would be 175. So then you want to consume 175 grams of protein. And I would argue, don't worry about the calories. And I would argue, eat as much fat as you want. Eat all the fat that you want, because the fat will fill you up. That will make you feel satisfied and help you go longer periods of time without eating if you want to do any type of fasting or intermittent fasting, which gets us into that topic, which is, yes, fasting is a very good thing, a very healthy thing. And it's not something I necessarily practice now because I'm at my ideal body weight. But when I wanted to get to my ideal body weight, fasting was absolutely critical.
So let's start combining, because yes, people get so hung on to number of calories. Perfect. So you're now talking about the protein is important, fat is important. Let's try to use our hands or the normal dishes that we have to try to put those numbers into perspective. So when you say 170 grams of protein, is a quarter of the dish, normal dish? Is half of the kind of thing? Is half of the palm of my size? How big is, I know it depends on the kind of protein, but roughly, how big is big? 170 grams of protein.
I mean, eat as much as, get to your grams of protein at least. Here's the thing, it's not easy, okay? Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. Okay, so let's say a chicken Caesar salad, right? Most people would think, kind of like the Mediterranean diet, which is what a lot of doctors will say to men over 40, yeah, eat your fruits and vegetables and eat some protein, but make sure you get your fruits and vegetables. I would argue no. And by the way, there's a lot of carnivore doctors out there now. There's a lot of doctors who are saying you don't need to eat fruits and vegetables at all. But let me explain. Okay, so let's say we eat something like a Caesar salad. You think that's healthy because it has some lettuce, maybe some spinach, arugula, and let's say 30 grams of protein. You eat that, you feel full. Why are you going to feel full? Well, one reason you're going to feel full is because in order for your body to digest the chicken in the Caesar salad, let's say it's a chicken Caesar salad, your stomach pH goes down to digest the protein, right? So when we digest the protein, we have a very low pH, more acidic gastric juices. To digest salad, lettuce, spinach, it's more alkaline gastric juices, especially if you have croutons on there, which is pure wheat carbohydrate, that's more alkaline. So now what happens? Now you're mixing acidic and alkaline juices in your stomach. That gives you a sensation of feeling full, but you're not really full. You didn't eat the ideal amount of protein. You only ate 30 grams of protein. If you do that 3 times a day, that's only 90 grams of protein. That's not enough protein. If you're a man who weighs 150 pounds, that's not enough. So that's the problem. What I'm saying is, instead of eating the 30 grams of protein in the chicken Caesar salad, eat the chicken with the skin, with the fat. And then if you're still hungry, and you're going to be still hungry because you didn't eat it with salad or croutons, eat another portion of 30 grams of protein. Now we're up to 60, 70 grams of protein. Now we're talking. Now to get to 150, 175 grams of protein, it's much easier to do because the salad and the croutons, in Occam's Razor Fitness, my business, I call that filler foods. Those are filler foods. They're foods to fill you up. but it's not giving you the protein that you need.
Let's explain that one, because at one point in time you said it right. Metrics and tracking what you're eating, what you're doing exercise is vital. And one of the things, because of my Latin culture, that we suck at it is breakfast. Mm-hmm. Even the Indians will tell us that cereal, and that's just sugar.
Right.
The industry and even, the culture tell us minimize the amount of eggs, which actually now I understand you need to eat more eggs.
Yes.
They tell us that a sandwich with ham and cheese is good enough, and the amount of proteins is burned to the minimum, 15, 20, if. So what kind of breakfast is good for a person over 40?
Again, protein and fats, bacon and eggs. Maybe a yogurt with high fat, none of these no fat yogurts, no. High fat Greek yogurts with a full amount of fat in there is the ideal. Because think about this, when you eat fat, okay, in order to digest fat, your gallbladder stores bile. Okay, bile emulsifies and helps digest the fat. Your body can only produce so much bile. So when you eat a meal like a big steak with the fat in it, or when you eat something that has a good amount of fat, you get full in a way that is different than when you eat cereal or popcorn or cookies or cake. You get full in a very special way because you only have so much bile that can be produced. And so you're just much more satiated. In fact, we even call it within the carnivore community, we call it the carnivore zen. After you eat a big steak or lots of animal products, and you're just like, you feel really full. And like, you just can't eat anymore. Which is why, like, I keep track of my proteins to make sure, but the truth is I eat as much as I want, all the time, whenever I want. Again, I hit my ideal weight. I don't recommend this to my clients when you have a goal and you're still trying to lose weight. But because I'm 56 and I have my six pack and I look the way I want to look, I eat whenever I want all the time. And when it comes to fat, this is where I go back to the chiropractic philosophy in that you want to listen to your innate intelligence. Because there is a duality with fat in that an animal, depending on what the animal ate, the fat can be really good for you or not so good. Because some animals, and humans included, if we take in toxins, the toxin could be deposited in fat. So this is where you really want to listen to your instincts and your own innate intelligence. If you're eating, for example, a steak, a ribeye, and you're cutting into the fat, the literal fat around the steak, a lot of people just cut that out and don't eat it at all. But here's what I say. I say, listen to your body, and if it's tasting good and your body is craving it, then eat it. If it's not tasting good and your body's not craving it, then don't eat it. There's going to be fat in the meat anyway. You're still going to get a good amount of fat. You don't have to eat the thick fat around the steak. But if your body's craving it, then eat it, because you have an innate intelligence. And it's possible that cow, if it was grass-fed and finished beef, and through the whole life that cow just ate grass, you're probably going to crave the fat more, because your innate intelligence, the inner wisdom that your body has, is going to taste good to you, and you're going to want that. However, if that cow was in a big factory on a cement floor, never ate grass, was fed tons of grains and wheat to fatten it up to sell at a higher profit, which unfortunately that's most of meat, then when you get to eat that fat, it may not taste good. It may not taste as good. So this is why, some trainers and nutritionists, they say, eat this amount of fat. No, I always argue, this is where I'm a little bit different than a lot of trainers and nutritionists. I go back to the chiropractic philosophy. We have an inner wisdom. we do sometimes want to listen to our instincts, and you want to eat that fat if it's tasting good. That being said, as your body adapts to burning fat for fuel and doesn't depend on sugar and carbohydrates, your body will crave fat more. Like one of the things I love the most in the world are, chicharrones, pork rinds. I mean, I love these things. I'm addicted to this, happily addicted. It's a good addiction. But this has about equal amounts of protein and fat, very healthy. But these are a little bit more expensive because they are cooked in pork fat. Now, not any pork rinds are good. If they're cooked in vegetable oils, not healthy at all, because the vegetable oils are extremely processed. And when you buy a brand like this, they cost about double, but it's worth it because it's cooked in its own pork fat, much, much healthier.
So let's start putting things, because I think we're learning a lot of things today. First of all, we don't need to do 2-hour exercise, because as a corporate, we don't have the time. 10 minutes with the proper intensity should be good enough. That's a good thing. That's a plus. The other thing that we've learned so far is we need to eat. No eating and doing exercise is bad. And we need to eat proteins and fat as much as the body wants. And the more exercise we do, the body's going to ask us to eat more the things that we need. So far, so good?
Yes.
Okay, doc.
Definitely.
Now, corporates, we are part of gyms, we play golf, we count steps, we sometimes go up and down through the ladders. It's exercise. But is that good enough to start, improving your body? I would say yes, but you tell me if I want to go a little bit higher, the next level, to build up muscle, to be and do kind of exercise on a regular basis, to look good or whatever, clothes, swimming suits, whatever. What kind of sports, what kind of intensity is required now? You told us about the pull and push on the blood, which is great, but if I'm playing golf, is that good enough? Or how long do I need to play golf?
I would argue not really. If you like golf, play it because you enjoy it. I really, I think that resistance training becomes the most important thing. Again, we have a couch potato, terrible. We have aerobic exercise like swimming, biking, running, good, always better than being a couch potato, right? But then we have the next level. For me, the next level is resistance training, yet done in a safe way. So this is where bands, using this becomes very, very important. And I'll give you an example, because why? Because we can get hurt. So let's say we're talking about doing a chest press. When we do weights, we might do a chest press where we're doing the bench press. Realize that when you start out here and it's heavy weight, this is your weak point. You get stronger as you stretch your arms out, much stronger. People argue 5 to 7 times stronger up here than you are here. But the weight stays the same throughout the whole movement. So that's risky when you start out. If it's very heavy, you could tear a chest muscle here when it's very heavy. But when you use a band, we create variable resistance. So in the beginning here, the resistance is not so hard. As I get stronger though, the resistance increases. So it's a variable resistance. So where I'm at my weakest, the resistance is less. Where I'm at my strongest, the resistance increases. So when we use bands, they're just way, way safer. You're able to get to muscle failure in a much better way, which, by the way, getting to muscle failure is a very important thing when you do it in a safe way, using bands or maybe just your own body weight. Because when you get to muscle failure towards the end of it, you're getting a cardiorespiratory workout. So what I'm talking about is that when you do your resistance training, you're getting a cardiorespiratory workout within your resistance training. So for example, let's say that sometimes I'll prime with weight. I'll do something like, let's say 20 diamond push-ups, get my muscles primed. I can do those safely, no problem. But then right afterwards, I grab this band and I'm gonna do a crossover push where I'm crossing over like this. Now, when I get to that point where I'm like, I can't even do one, and then maybe I'll do a few partial reps like this, what's happening? I'm like, I'm getting a cardiorespiratory workout at that time. I'm working my muscles to complete failure, which is the number one thing that stimulates muscle growth. So I'm doing cardiorespiratory at the same time, going to muscle failure, and guess what? You only need to do one set. That's it. One set. So remember I was talking about the 10-minute workout, the push and pull, doing that together. Normally, when I start my clients, they'll do that for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Then I'll switch them into a full body push and pull workout, doing only 5 exercises. That's it, 5, no more than that. So you're gonna do one push exercise going straight up, one going straight out, one going straight down, and then 2 for your thighs, the front of your legs on a push day. On a pull day, it's the same 3 upper body exercise, but in reverse. A pull like this, a pull like this, a pull like this, and then working the back of your legs to hamstring. So there's only 5 exercises, and you're only doing 1 set to failure. That's it. So we're talking 5 exercises. If they take 2 minutes each to do, that's 10 minutes. Let's add a minute or 2 in between. So the workouts take about 20 minutes. That's it.
Well, that's
and
something.
And that's what you continue doing.
I think that's all. Any corporate can do it. So here's another thing. So that will strengthen our core. That will start building muscle. We're going to start losing body fat. But we're corporate executives. We set up events. We go to charity events. And of course, today, the most common event, the sport event, it would be the typical 5K. How I go from this resistance training to be ready for a 5K, let's say in a month and a half. Because I'm pretty sure eating is still important and I need to be more adjusted for it. Resistance needs to be important, but it's gotta be something else that is missing. What would that be? What would it be your plan, like in a month and a half, to be ready for the event that I'm sponsoring for my 5K for the kids and for the corporation?
Yeah, I mean, a 5K, I mean, it's something that, I kind of have a little bit of a bad knee now because I had surgery like 35 years ago, but I'm still able to work out my legs. But yeah, I kind of just avoid running, me personally.
Oh.
You know, I haven't done a 5K since probably 8 or 9 years ago was when last time I did something like that, when I was in CrossFit, where we would sometimes do long distance runs. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to do a 5K, then you should train for a 5K. But understand that there's a cost with that. You know, remember, you have an innate intelligence. So if you're going to train your body to run, 5K, that means that your body's going to reduce muscle in your upper body. It's going to reduce the muscle because muscle weighs more than fat. It's not efficient to help you go further for longer. So you are paying a price. And I would argue that, you know, if you love doing 5Ks and just like for people who love biking and swimming, I mean, it's a good thing to do. It's better than being a couch potato, but resistance training, if we want to talk longevity, if we want to talk about reducing the fat inside of your organs, you want to get into resistance training. And this now makes me want to share. I showed you a little sliver of that with the MRI earlier.
So what you find, the file, what Hermann and I are trying to tell you guys, corporate executives, is lifestyle. We're not talking about actually going and competing for the Olympics. I will discuss it. I'll try to win the 5K. is how to be in a great lifestyle that we can get to the 70s and 80s and still be functional. Myself, I don't think I'm going to retire ever because I love to work, jumping on planes, talking to customers. I love because I'm competitive. As I am in business, I try to be competitive in sports, and that's, I think, what we're talking about, right, Hermann? To be in that core strength so we can continue to do our lives 80s and 90s, maybe.
Right. Yeah, and look at here. This here is an example. This is an MRI taken of the midsection. This is an individual who was jogging. He was already on a ketogenic carnivore type of diet. Look at his visceral fat. The white there represents, colored in red, that represents visceral fat around the organs. And this person, this was in February of 2017, he stopped running, started doing resistance training, and I think a few sprints. Remember, sprints are very different than jogging. Sprints are just short-term, short burst of energy, full speed, that and resistance exercise. And look how much the fat decreased after just 2 months of switching from jogging to resistance training. So it just makes a big difference, whether we're jogging or doing resistance training, which is why as for men over 40, remember, fat gives you 9 calories of energy. So if you're going to run, the body's going to store fat where it's most. Where would you store fat? It's going to be in your midsection where the center of gravity is. You're not going to store it in your arms or your legs. You're going to keep it here. But this is also where all your organs are. So now you have fat around your organs. But the body needs the fat to access the 9 calories of energy, to help you run further, walk further, swim further, bike further. But having that visceral fat is not healthy. And this is why we have famous joggers and marathoners who have literally died of heart attacks. That's not to say that running is bad. It's better than being a couch potato. But when you're 40 plus, it's not ideal. Why do the running when you can do resistance training and still get a cardiorespiratory workout by going to muscle failure doing safe resistance training? Why would you want to do any other cardio besides that? There's no need to, unless you're doing it for fun, for sport. Golfing, fine. You're doing a lot of walking while you golf, sure, that's fine. But you don't need to do the extra cardio because you're getting it in your resistance training. And that's my point.
So resistance training it should be and must be part of a new lifestyle that you're proposing, which I kind of agree.
Yes.
That's what, as the same way that we train our minds, we train our teams, we need to start training our body to go the long run on business and on life. Resistant training. Everything else is just at our age, 40 and above, is part of being fun, but not necessarily to be healthy in the long run. Cool. Let's talk about, because you also mentioned it, tracking. Today we got tons of devices. We got smartphones, we got cell phones, we got the internet, we got artificial intelligence, we got the traditional ways, we got the personal coaches, and funny thing, the thing that we got the most corporate is ego. How to let the ego go and find help and support from people like you. What would be a recommendation?
In terms of tracking, yes, I keep things very simple. Again, when it comes to eating, I only track my protein, that's it. And when it comes to workouts, I just use a simple Google Sheets. I write in, if I'm, a lot of times I'll prime with weight. So I might do a chest press where I use weight, but not a lot of heavy weight, and I don't go to muscle failure. And then I'll jump on a band right after I primed my muscle with weight. And then I'll see how many crossover full of these I can do and I keep track of which band that I use, the green band, the thick green band, and I'll write that in Google Sheets. And I just keep track. And as I'm working out on my phone, I'm just putting the information in. And that's how you track. I mean, I don't use an app. I've tried them before, but since I want to I like to have a template, and I give this to my clients, and I want to be creative. So, like, for example, and this is why I don't like using apps, because you can't be as creative. So I always tell my clients, for example, time under tension. Instead of going with heavier weight, let's add time under tension. So, for example, when doing biceps curls with a barbell, for example, first of all, in order for it to be safe, you want to do it close to the body like this. You don't want to do this, because if you do this, you're incorporating your low back, you can hurt yourself. As a former chiropractor, I had a lot of people who would just do this and then they end up hurting their back. So you want to bring the barbell up close to your body, much safer for you. But let's say, instead of just seeing how much we can lift, how heavy, how many reps, why don't we just take a barbell and just hold it here for 20 seconds? So there, what we're doing is we're holding this for 20 seconds. Let's say it's 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever, it doesn't matter. But we keep track of it. We time it for 30 seconds, and then we put it down. As soon as we're done, we grab the band, and now with the band, we're going to use the band. And now I'm going to start doing some reps with the band. After I primed my muscles with the weight for 30 seconds, now I'm going to go right into using the bands. And I'm going to see how many I can do. I can get up to my chest, how many of those I can do. And I'm going to write that down. I'm going to keep track of it that way. So I know I used a 30-pound barbell. I held it for 30 seconds. Then I used a green thick band, and I was able to do 8 reps up to my chest after that. So then the next time I do that exercise, I can time it. I can try to get to 9 reps, 10 reps, like that. And again, like I mentioned before with the bands, when we're doing this, we're going to get to that point where we can't get to our chest, and now we're doing partial reps, like and that's where you get that cardiorespiratory workout. That's where you get that muscle failure, stimulating muscle growth in a safe way with a band, not with heavy weights, because with heavy weights, it's risky. And that's the way to go. That's how I keep track of it. I mean, I tried the apps. I know you're more techie than I am, Edgar. I know you love your techie stuff, which is fun. I get it, but yeah.
Perfect. So now we know we need to track. Same thing that we do at the boardroom. We need to track what we do. And more importantly, based on what I'm listening from you, we need to track progress. Because I think, over time, we need to start moving from band to band, from resistance to resistance, more intensity, because that's what's going to help us to be more lean.
Yes.
How we get motivation happening? Is there something physical, or as we go along and seeing results, the body start motivating itself? Tell us your experiences.
Okay, I think the motivation starts with knowing the why and going back to first principles, going back to what I call like deductive reasoning, because a lot of the reason I call my business Occam's Razor Fitness, you might have heard of the phrase Occam's Razor, okay, which is usually the simple solution is best, or what's the fastest way from A to B, the simplest, fastest way. That, William Occam was a monk back in the 14th century Britain. He was also a philosopher, and he's the person where we got the phrase Occam's Razor put in. So I like to look at things in a very simple way. And one of the things we need to start looking at is, get a little bit into diet now, and what motivates you, and how keeping away from certain foods becomes easier. First of all, we need to know the why we're going to do something. Why? Why should we avoid vegetables, for example, or eat less vegetables when we've been told our whole life vegetables are healthy? Why? We've been told our whole life they're healthy. Why now should we change? Well, I'll explain. Let me show you. I'm gonna share my screen again, and I'm gonna show you another. And the basic concept comes down to that vegetables are living things that want to live. Now, we all know that an animal, if an animal knows it's going to be killed and eaten, the animal will try to run, right? Or it'll bite. Vegetables are also living things. So vegetables cannot run or bite, so they create chemical warfare or anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients mean that they will bind to certain things that your body should absorb, and you're not going to be able to absorb it. They'll have things like oxalates, which is very high in spinach, by the way, and can cause kidney stones. 80% of kidney stones are due to high oxalates, and they're found in spinach and other vegetables. But look at this example here, black beans. Now, my parents were both born in Cuba, so I grew up eating rice and black beans. Now, black beans have what are called anti-nutrients. So this here was a study done where everyone knows that oysters are known for being an aphrodisiac, and the reason they're known for that is because it has a high levels of zinc. Zinc is very important for men in producing sperm and testosterone. Hence why oysters are known for being an aphrodisiac. If you eat oysters by themselves, in a few hours, you have about between 120 and 150, 60 grams or I'm not sure what, if not grams, but you have 160 zinc in your plasma blood levels after you eat the oysters. However, if you eat the oysters with black beans, then the black beans have an anti-nutrient. They will bind to the zinc, which means your body will not absorb the zinc. And a few hours afterwards, you have much less zinc in your blood. Now, we all know no one wants to eat oysters with black beans. That's weird. We're more likely to actually eat oysters with corn tortillas. And guess what? Corn tortillas bind to the zinc even more so, because that's an artificially processed thing, even worse than the black beans. And it's going to bind more zinc, and you're not going to absorb hardly any of it at all. So despite the fact that we've been told our whole lives that vegetables are healthy, the reality is vegetables are living things. They create chemical warfare, and they don't want to be eaten. And vegetables are not as healthy as most people think they are. Fruit is really just using you to pass its seed along. Fruit is sugary and has fructose and glucose so that you then will poop the seed out. Fruit too is basically using you. All that glucose and fructose from fruit is not really healthy. It's still sugar. There are some good vitamins and minerals in fruit, but they're not as great as people think. And here's an interesting fact. The vitamin C molecule and the glucose and fructose molecule look very similar. And your body will grab on the glucose and fructose first before grabbing onto the vitamin C. So when you think you're eating an orange juice or an orange and you think you're getting X amount of grams of vitamin C, guess what? You're not. Because your body is going to prioritize the sugar first because it wants to use that for energy. You see, we evolved that way, okay? Sugar, fruits we would eat, back when we were hunting for the animals, you'd eat a few blueberries as you're tracking down an animal. If you see a tree with blueberries, you'd eat a few, and it would be seasonal. You're not going to eat blueberries all year long. You're not going to eat apples all year long. It's seasonal. So we ate, much less than we do today. And yeah, in small amounts like that, it's good for us. But the reality is that, you know, in today's day and age, if you want to be healthier, you might avoid the processed foods, thinking vegetables and fruit are the way to go. And I would argue, not really. I mean, it's still better than processed junk, yes. But the ideal diet is, I'm going to share my screen again, a keto carnivore type of diet. That's really the ideal of what we want to do. And that's where we want to look at, you know, this type of diet. Keto just means you're eating less than 50 grams of carbohydrates per day. And the more you move to the left of this screen, basically the healthier you become and the faster you're going to adapt to burning fat for fuel, and the faster you're going to lose weight. A lot of my clients will be on an animal-based classic carnivore. I'm pretty much, or like, this is kind of where I'm at now. I might eat some fruit and honey and carbohydrates before and after I work out mainly. But to the rest of the time, I'm basically eating meat. I mean, I don't eat bread. I avoid wheat. I read the book Wheat Belly and Grain Brain. If you read those books, you too would want to avoid wheat, especially American-made wheat, because it is worse than European-made wheat. And so this is what I consider to be the ideal diet. You know, we want to eat very little vegetables, very little fruit, maybe a little bit, but not much. And we mainly want to be on an animal-based diet. And what's the advantage of that? Well, looking at executives, your brain functions better. Your mood, even depression and anxiety decrease when you're on a ketogenic carnivore diet. Because remember, your brain is 60% fat when you remove the water. It's 60% fat. So when your body learns to burn fat for fuel and you get into ketosis, which is what a ketogenic carnivore diet does, it has you burning fat for fuel, then your brain starts to function better. When your brain starts to function better, things like depression and anxiety decrease. And these here are just some of the studies that have proven that a ketogenic carnivore diet is the way to go if you want your brain to function better. And this now brings me up, I'm sure, Edgar, you've heard of the GLP-1 drugs, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're very famous today.
I did a whole webinar on the GLP-1 drugs versus natural dieting. And, you know, it's going to be very tempting, the GLP-1 drugs, for a lot of men and women, because they're about to be, you know, they're going to be discounted now, cost less for consumers. But I don't recommend it, because the GLP-1 drugs, the reason why it works is because it's mimicking what a ketogenic carnivore diet already does. That was the most interesting thing that I found about the GLP-1 drugs. All they did is get the GLP-1 peptide that your body produces already when you're on a ketogenic carnivore diet. Your body produces this GLP-1 peptide naturally. And the GLP-1 drugs, all it's doing is taking that peptide, tweaking it, created a patent so it can sell it as a drug. And that's all it's doing. It's copying something that already happens when you're on a ketogenic carnivore diet. For example, they talk about how it slows digestion. Well, when you eat meat, guess what? Your body absorbs 90% of it. What does that tell you? I mean, let's think about this. When you eat vegetables and plants that have a lot of fiber, fiber is supposed to be good for us. That's a very relative thing. Fiber can be helpful when you're eating a lot of junk food and you're mixing and matching all different types of food, and your body has to produce alkaline and acidic gastric juices, and you're mixing all these foods up. A little bit of fiber can help ease digestion, okay? But the reality is we don't really need fiber. The reality is that once your body adapts to being ketogenic and carnivore, and you're mainly eating all animal products, fish, eggs, chicken, meat, pork, lamb, your body gets used to digesting that. You don't need the fiber. And on top of that, your digestion is going to slow down. You're going to go to the bathroom a lot less. One of the things that people freak out about when they go on a ketogenic carnivore diet, they're like, oh my God, I didn't go to the bathroom for 2 days. And I tell them, so what? Sometimes I may go 5 days without going to the bathroom. It doesn't matter. Think about this. When you eat meat, your body absorbs 90% of it. What is that telling you? That your body needs it, that your body wants it. When you eat a vegetable with a lot of fiber, your body only absorbs 50% of it. So you go to the bathroom more. But what is that telling you? That maybe your body didn't want the vegetable as much. It passed more of it just through you. Think about it from a logical standpoint. Do you want to eat something where you absorb the majority of it because your body wants it and needs it? Or do you want to eat something that your body's only going to absorb 50% of it?
Great information. Let's start putting things together, because I think the next thing as a corporate executive is, what is a reasonable goal and how fast I can get to the first milestone so I can start building up motivation and go to the next level. You mentioned the doing resistance. Maybe you can shred 20 pounds. How fast? A month, 2 months, 3 months?
Yeah, I think you can lose up to 2 pounds a week, which might be a little bit aggressive, but yes, it can be done. And it's really going to vary, and it's going to vary on your transition into becoming more ketogenic or carnivore. There is also a transition phase. There is a thing called the keto flu. Remember, behind all of this, we have an innate intelligence. Okay, so it's like this. I always like to cite this example. This woman was telling me how she's been more carnivore and she loves it. And then she got motivated to do this 7-day fruit cleanse. Okay. And so she went for 7 days where she was only eating fruit. And then she went to carnivore and she felt terrible. And I tell her, what do you expect? Your body went from carnivore, it adapted to fruit. You were fasting and eating very little and then only fruit. And then now all of a sudden you're going to start eating meat and you think you're supposed to feel good? No, your body has to adapt. You have an innate intelligence. That's rule number 1 of longevity. You have an innate intelligence, which means that if you've been a vegetarian for 10 years, and you now maybe have seen the light and you have seen, you look at some common sense and it's like, okay, I think I want to try a carnivore diet. Or, you now have to understand that your body has adapted you to being a vegetarian for 10 years. Now you want to switch to carnivore. That's going to be a process. It's not going to happen from one day to the next. And in fact, you want to do it slowly. You want to do it carefully. You don't want to do it all at once because you're going to feel terrible. That's just another reality. It's like, if you've been running marathons your whole life and then now you want to start doing resistance training. Okay. Are you going to feel sore the first few days after you start lifting weights and you haven't lifted weights in years? Of course you are. It's the same thing with diet. So rule number 1 of the longevity principles is that you have an innate intelligence that has adapted you. And that's rule number 1. So understand that if you want to make these changes, you're going to go through a process. Many people, when they start becoming ketogenic, they might go through a keto flu where they feel like really sick for 2 or 3 days. Also very common, men will get diarrhea for a few days, a few weeks. It could be. That's going to vary from person to person, but it's a process, because again, The body needs to adapt. You have an innate intelligence, which also means that's why, you know, there's some people that, yeah, they got used to eating, for example, tons of sugar, and they are addicted to sugar. You know, is an addiction really an addiction, or is it an adaptation? They're kind of like two sides of the same coin. Addiction, adaptation. I happily admit that I'm addicted to fatty foods and fatty meats, and I'm addicted to like these pork rinds, you know, and I'm okay with that. And maybe I'm also addicted to my healthy beef sticks and my, you know, my cheese crisps. You know, and those, by the way, are snacks that are great because you can carry with you. And if you're a busy executive and you go out to eat all the time, you know, this is where, and this is one of the things that it makes the motivation that you were talking about, Edgar, earlier, how are we motivated, right? How do we get motivated to eat the right way? Well, part of it is that if you're going to go out to a business lunch, and let's say it's more of a vegetarian restaurant, and they have a chicken Caesar salad, and they don't have chicken by itself. So you order the chicken Caesar salad, you eat the chicken alone, you only ate 30 grams of chicken. You can either A, pay for another Caesar salad to get the chicken out and not eat the salad, or you have in your car and with you, you have things like cheese crisps, beef sticks, you maybe have pork rinds. And now, once you're done, you're maybe still a little bit hungry, but you go into your car and you eat these things, and you know, you don't have to worry about it. But these are little tricks of the trade that, you know, you can go out to eat, and, you know, because I hear from executives all the time, yeah, but I have to entertain guests. I go, you can entertain guests. Just eat the meat. Keep eating the protein. It's very simple.
To wrap it up, to our corporate executives, to our busy corporate executives like myself, full of excuses. 5 tips that we need to remember and start executing right away.
Okay, so if you're traveling, keep in mind to pack a band, much easier than packing weights. So, you know, there's a way to work out, get all the 5 main exercises. It can all be done with a couple of bands and your own body weight. You don't even need any weights at all, and that'll help you with traveling. Number 2, when traveling as well, you're allowed to take a 3rd bag on the airplane as long as it's only food. Okay, so I would suggest start incorporating into your life, and I have videos on this where I can explain it all in more details, but when you get snacks like these, cheese that doesn't need to be refrigerated, beef sticks, these are grass-fed, grass-finished chomps beef sticks, very, very healthy, and healthy pork rinds cooked in pork fat, then you can go out to eat and, you know, eat the steak. Skip the rice, skip the beans, skip the vegetables. Just eat the steak by itself. If you're still hungry, you have those snacks to fall back on. That would be a 3rd tip there. Another one would be track your protein, track your workouts so that you can compete with yourself, so that you can progressively overload, so that if you're using a certain band, this one, you can see how thick it is. There are bands that are even thicker and harder than this. So as you get stronger, you can move up in the thickness and the difficulty of the bands, the resistance of the bands. So keep track. How many do we have there? 4?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say, think about behind all of this, the common sense of a carnivore diet. In that, think about how vegetables do not want to be eaten. So whenever someone tells you about a new sexy vegetable from an exotic country, I don't get that excited because I know it's a vegetable. Vegetables want to live. Vegetables in nature have always been very, very bitter. what we don't realize is that, do you ever see broccoli out in nature by itself? No, broccoli was created about 2,500 years ago by humans. You don't see corn out there in nature. Corn was invented in the Central America area by the natives there. And yeah, it was needed, and it's probably saved millions of lives, but it was really the first genetically modified food is corn. And it was mixed with different plants until we got what we got. A little bit more sugary, never found in nature. Corn cannot reproduce by itself. It needs humans to intervene in order for corn to keep producing itself. So look at things from a historical evolutionary standpoint. Look at what's called the expensive tissue hypothesis, which goes along with evolution, in that the only way our brain was able to grow was because we started eating cooked meat. And that allowed our digestive system to shrink, to become more carnivore, which is really what allowed our brain to grow. Which is why when you eat meat, your brain starts to function better. And even things like depression and anxiety decrease. So when you take all of this into consideration, even all the animals that the United States used to have, the mammoths, we used to have camels here 20,000 years ago. We had giant sloths. That all of these animals were killed off by humans because we ate the fatty meat. That's what we did when we hunted. That's what allowed our brains to grow. If you look at the past, at the bones, at nature, at evolution, the expensive tissue hypothesis, it just makes so much common sense that, it just kind of makes you want to be a carnivore, makes you want to eat meat. And I have sympathy for those who are vegetarian, because I also love animals. I definitely believe that a lot of vegetarians are vegetarians because they don't want to kill animals. And I have empathy for that, because that is a good excuse. I love animals. I hate the idea of killing animals, but as long as, the way I see it, it's just the way evolution has been. It's the way nature is. As long as we try to give the animal a good life and then we kill it quickly and swiftly and painlessly as possible, then I think it's kind of the way it needs to be. And I want to be at my healthiest. I want my brain functioning as best as it can, my fitness and my body working well. And that's why I eat animals, because it's the healthy thing to do.
From my side, this is my takes based on this incredible conversation with Hermann. It's a lifestyle. And the same principles, the same processes that we set up very good at the boardroom, at the corporations, if we really want to adopt a new lifestyle, that's exactly the same mentality, mindset, discipline that we need to apply. We need to know where we are today. Doesn't matter if you've never done any exercise, do an assessment. Talk to your physician, talk to your nutrition, talk to your friends, talk to whoever you want to reach out, friends, colleagues, or experts like Hermann, but do an assessment where you are. Those people are going to tell you what you can go about, point B, and start putting a plan in place. Divide and conquer, put milestones, set up KPIs. Now we got technology, we got phones, we got watches, we got, spreadsheets, we got everything and anything, and now artificial intelligence or video conference, so we can set up with the professionals. At the boardroom, we hire external consultants whenever we're going to bring a different point of view. This is exactly the same. The important thing is to do discipline, to have resilience, to be committed, and ask for help when you need it. It's a lifestyle. Have fun doing so. If we learn today, get 10 minutes, eating protein, having protein at the breakfast is important. Eating is important, but you need to commit, you need to ask for help, you need to follow guidelines, and you need to learn the same way we would do any kind of business. Hermann, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I hope you guys watching us are learning a lot. We got contacts for Hermann, myself. Reach out, share with everyone, do like, And we hope you see you guys on the next episode of NT593. I'm Edgar, he's Hermann. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye-bye. Take care.